Our next story is about the dollar. It seems China has declared a war on the greenback. Beijing is striking deals, strengthening trade ties, and asking partners to switch to the yuan to settle their bills. First, Brazil made the switch. Now Argentina has entered the club. Argentina will use the yuan for trade with China, and they'll start this month. They're getting $1 billion worth of imports in the month of April, and the payment for this will be done in the Chinese currency. But why is Argentina doing this? Let me explain. This year, Argentina suffered a crippling drought. Crop yields were less, so agricultural exports plunged, which meant that fewer dollars were flowing into Argentina, and so it makes sense for them to use the yuan for Chinese goods. This way, they save their dollars and their reserves. And China is not complaining. One more country using the yuan is good news for them. There is clear momentum behind the Chinese currency. Look at the numbers. Last year in 2022, the international usage of the yuan rose by over 26%. Over $6 trillion worth of payments were settled in the Chinese currency. The yuan has become the world's fifth largest currency for global payments. It comes after the dollar, the pound sterling, the euro, and the Japanese yen. It is also the fifth most held currency in global foreign exchange reserves. Around 80 central banks keep the yuan in reserve, and more banks are joining the list. Last year, a survey threw up some interesting results. It said most central banks in the world want the yuan in their reserves. How many? 85% of the world's central banks. They either have the yuan already or they're interested in building a yuan reserve. So clearly, the Chinese currency is emerging as a challenger to the US dollar. And today, a new report backed this trend. The dollar suffered another setback. In the month of March, the yuan became the most widely used currency for cross-border transactions in China. And this is a record. Almost $550 billion worth of yuan was exchanged. It was used in almost 49% of all transactions done with China. The trajectory looks good, but the yuan is far from becoming the world's go-to currency. This is the list of the most used currencies. And where do you see the yuan here? Near the bottom. The 8th most used currency in the world. Not even 2% of international payments are happening through the yuan as of now. The dollar still reigns supreme. In the month of January, it was used for over 45% of all global transactions. So the yuan is a challenger, but not a threat as of now. In order for that to happen, the yuan needs to beat currencies like the euro, the pound, and the yen. But that doesn't mean that the de-dollarization campaign is not real. Other currencies are rising. Countries want to reduce their dependence on the US dollar. Central banks are cutting back on the greenback. Earlier, the dollar had 71% share in reserves. Now it has fallen to 59%. That's a fall of 12%. Which other currency is challenging the US dollar? The Indian rupee is trying to. It's one of them. It's trying to ride the wave. India has launched an effort to internationalize the rupee. India's Reserve Bank is running a program. 18 central banks from around the world have signed up. They want to use the Indian rupee for trade with India. The list includes countries like Germany, Israel, Malaysia, New Zealand, Oman, Seychelles, Sri Lanka, and the United Kingdom. All these countries have opened special accounts that will allow them to use the Indian rupee. But it's still early days. The rupee is the new kid on the block. It was just last year that the RBI introduced the mechanism to facilitate trade in the rupee. But the timing couldn't have been better. The dollar's domination is waning, and there's opportunity for other currencies to fill the gap.